By the time the squad cars rolled into Magnolia Crest, Officer Doug was face down on my lawn, zip-tied with my phone propped on a garden gnome, still recording. My pregnant wife sat on the porch swing wrapped in a blanket, sipping water, looking very done with the entire concept of suburbia. The HOA president, Beverly Ames, stood on the sidewalk in a silk bathrobe and HOA lanyard, shrieking that I was assaulting an officer of the law. One of the real officers glanced at Doug's shiny plastic badge, the word Security Enforcement HOA Patrol spelled wrong in the middle. He looked at me and asked if this was the cop who threatened to have my wife forcibly removed from her own property for unapproved fetal activity. Yes, officer, I said. That would be the gentleman currently eating St. Augustine grass. The real cop sighed, yanked Doug up by the zip ties, and said the most beautiful sentence I'd heard all year. You're under arrest for impersonating an officer and making terroristic threats. And you, he pointed at Beverly, do not move. Magnolia Crest HOA had wanted a show of authority. They were about to get a whole different kind of show. I'm Tyler Huang, 34 years old, software engineer, part-time grill purist, full-time hater of unnecessary meetings. My wife, Mia, is 7 months pregnant with our first kid, the only person who can talk me into assembling IKEA furniture at midnight, and the reason I bought a quiet 4-bedroom in a neighborhood that had brochures with phrases like community standards and curated aesthetic. The neighborhood is Magnolia Crest Estates, a suburban terrarium of beige perfection just outside Raleigh. Every house has 3 gables, a fake dormer window, and a front yard that looks copy-pasted. The HOA board is run by people who treat paint swatches like religious texts. At the center of it all is Beverly Ames, HOA president. Late 50s, pastel cardigans, a bob haircut so sharp it could sever a lease. She spoke only in policy, subparagraphs, and phrases like per our guidelines and as stated in Section 4.3b. From day one, I tried to keep my head down. I paid dues on autopay, mowed the lawn, waved politely, and ignored the HOA newsletter that referred to residents as stakeholders in the Magnolia Crest brand. But being quiet in Magnolia Crest isn't neutral. To Beverly, a man who doesn't show up to HOA meetings is a man hiding something. It started with tiny things. A note about our non-approved welcome mat, which said hello there in cursive and was apparently too whimsical. An email about our trash cans being visible for 17 minutes past the allowed time. A friendly reminder that our front porch chairs did not appear in the original architectural renderings. Annoying? Sure. But manageable. Then Mia's pregnancy started showing. And Beverly started watching. The first incident was almost funny. Mia had ordered a small raised garden bed for the side yard, just 4 by 2 feet, so she could grow tomatoes and basil. Normal pregnant nesting stuff. 2 days later, we got our first formal violation notice from the Magnolia Crest Board. The issue was listed as unauthorized agricultural installation. The risk was attracting vermin and degrading neighborhood aesthetic. The fine was $150 per week until removal. Mia kindly replied with a doctor's note recommending light gardening for stress relief. Beverly emailed back saying the board is not obligated to recognize medical opinions that conflict with community standards. Okay. That one we appealed. Then Beverly started sending neighborhood wellness checks. That was her term for walking slowly past our house twice a day, sunglasses on, phone out, filming. She'd zoom in on our recycling bin, our driveway, the stroller box on the porch. One afternoon, Mia stepped outside and caught Beverly taking photos of our nursery curtains through the front window. "Ma'am, can I help you?" Mia asked, hand on her belly. "I'm documenting potential code deviations," Beverly said, not lowering her phone. "Window treatments must be white or off-white. Those appear pink." "They're rose beige," Mia said, already exhausted. Beverly sniffed. "We'll let the board decide." I installed a door camera that night. Beverly filed a complaint the next morning with the subject line hostile surveillance toward HOA board members. Then came the rumors. A neighbor, Greg, mentioned at the mailboxes that Beverly told the board we were hostile renters, likely to bring in short-term guests, and that Mia was planning an unlicensed daycare. "Dude," I said, holding a pack of Amazon baby socks. "We're just trying to keep a tiny human alive." By month 7, we'd had 4 violation letters, 2 wellness checks that somehow turned into loud arguments on our front walk, and one anonymous note saying if you can't follow rules now, how will you raise a child? We were tired. But we were still playing nice. Beverly, however, was done being ignored. That's when Officer Doug appeared. It was a Tuesday mid-morning when Mia called me, voice shaking. "Tyler, there's a cop on our porch," she whispered. "He's saying he can arrest me." I threw on my headset, muted my Zoom stand-up, and opened the Doorbell camera app. On screen was a man in an ill-fitting Navy uniform with no department name, no badge number, just a shiny shield that looked like it came in a 3-pack on Amazon. He had a mustache that thought it worked for a real police department. "I've been authorized by the Magnolia Crest Enforcement Committee to conduct a compliance inspection," he announced, hands on his belt like he'd practiced in the mirror. "There's no such thing as a Magnolia Crest Enforcement Committee," Mia said weakly. "Ma'am," he replied, "if you refuse inspection, I can have you removed from the property pending HOA legal action and possible child endangerment charges." My blood went cold. Mia stepped back, one hand cradling her stomach. "I need to call my husband," she said. "You can call whoever you want down at the station," he said, shoving a paper in her direction. "Sign this notice acknowledging your violations." I hit record on the camera. Then I called Mia. "Put me on speaker," I said. "Officer," I began, keeping my voice flat, "what department are you with?" "This is between me and the resident," he said. "You're interfering in a legal matter." "Cool. So which jurisdiction?" "Magnolia Crest Security," he said. "That's not a police department," I replied. "It's a contracted unit," he said quickly. "We work closely with the sheriff's office." I opened my browser and typed fast, "Magnolia Crest Security Company." Nothing. No listings. No contracts filed with the county. "And what's your badge number?" I asked. He hesitated. "I don't have to give that to you. Every real cop I've ever met loves giving their badge number." "You're being recorded," I said. "I work in cybersecurity. I'm very familiar with impersonation statutes. You're on my private property threatening my pregnant wife with arrest over HOA violations." That finally rattled him. Look, the HOA president, Mrs. Ames, she requested a security presence. The forms are official. You're in violation. If you don't comply, I'll escalate this. I can make things very difficult for your family." And there it was. The overstep. 2 hours later, Mia forwarded me an email from Beverly. "Per our contracted security officer's report, your household engaged in noncompliance, verbal assault, and potential fraud. The board will be discussing emergency measures, including lien placement, forced removal of non-approved fixtures, including nursery curtains, and reporting you to CPS if unsafe behavior continues." They threatened to weaponize Child Protective Services over curtains and tomatoes. That's when I stopped being nice. You know how some men cope with stress by golfing? I cope by building evidence folders. By that evening, I had every violation letter and email in a neatly labeled Google Drive. I had doorbell footage of Beverly photographing inside our windows. I had the full recording of Officer Doug threatening Mia. I had screenshots of our county's list of licensed security firms with no Magnolia Crest anything. I had a copy of North Carolina's statutes on impersonating an officer, harassment, and terroristic threats. I sent it all to 3 places. The county sheriff's non-emergency line with a very detailed email. A HOA specialist attorney my coworker had sworn by. And our entire neighborhood Facebook group. That last one was the spark. I posted the video of Officer Doug with a caption. PSA, HOA security impersonating law enforcement, threatening my pregnant wife with arrest and CPS over curtains and a tomato planter. For anyone else who's felt bullied by the board, you're not crazy. Within 10 minutes, the comments exploded. Wait, he came to my house too. He told my teenager he could charge him for skateboarding. Beverly said he was off-duty police. We've been paying extra security fees for this? Our mailbox-style HOA email chimed so often my phone vibrated across the table. An hour later, my new favorite person called. Attorney Raymond Pike, HOA eater by profession. "I've looked over what you sent," he said. "Congratulations, Mr. Huang. Your HOA just tripped over more statutes than I see in some entire careers. They've got potential civil and criminal liabilities. Impersonation, harassment, misuse of funds, invasion of privacy. Question is, you want to just protect yourself, or are we cleaning house? I looked over at Mia, napping on the couch, her hand curled around her belly. We're cleaning house, I said. The next day, the sheriff's office called back. They wanted formal statements. They were very interested in Officer Doug. Has he been representing himself as a law enforcement officer? The detective asked. Yes, I said, sending over the video. And the HOA has been backing him. The detective asked if I would mind if they stopped by, saying he thought it was time they met our security contractor. By Friday, the sheriff had quietly confirmed Doug was not a cop, not a licensed guard, and had exactly one professional credential, an expired forklift certification. The board had paid him out of a mysterious safety and aesthetic compliance fund. This was going to hurt. Just not us. We didn't tell anyone about the sheriff's visit. Instead, we waited for the next HOA compliance sweep. You know, the little patrol where Beverly and Doug strutted around with clipboards like they were patrolling the DMZ. They came down our street at 3 p.m. on Saturday, Beverly in a visor, Doug in his Spirit Halloween uniform. I was mowing the lawn, very conspicuously wearing a GoPro on my chest. Mia sat on the porch by a cooler full of water bottles, looking as harmless as a pregnant woman can look in a Don't Talk to Me, I'm Growing Bones t-shirt. Beverly stopped at the property line. Tyler, per our last correspondence, we are issuing final notice regarding your non-compliant curtains and hostile surveillance devices. Hi, Beverly, I said. And hello, officer. You're just in time. Two sheriff's cruisers rolled around the corner, lights off but very present. Doug visibly shrank. The detective stepped out, all professional calm. Afternoon. You Doug Miller? Doug swallowed. Yeah. I'm with Magnolia. The detective held up a hand. We've already confirmed you are not with any law enforcement or licensed security organization in this county. Turn around, hands behind your back. Beverly gasped. Excuse me, what are you doing? He's on an official HOA patrol. Ma'am, the detective said, pulling out the plastic badge from Doug's chest, this is not a real badge. This man has been threatening residents under color of authority he does not have. That's a felony. They cuffed Doug right there on Magnolia Crest Lane as half the neighborhood watched from behind their HOA-compliant shrubs. Beverly turned on me, eyes blazing. This is your doing. You and your wife with your videos and your tomatoes. Beverly, I said, the sheriff's office also has questions about the security fees you've been collecting. Something about misuse of funds and harassment. My attorney will fill you in. Right on cue, Attorney Pike walked up, holding a thick folder. He's one of those guys who always looks like he smells blood in the water. Ms. Ames, he said crisply, I represent the Huang family and a growing list of residents. We'll be seeking a full audit, injunctions against further harassment, and personal liability where appropriate. Behind us, someone was filming on their phone. Actually, everyone was filming. Beverly sputtered, You can't sue the board. We're volunteers. Volunteering, Pike said smoothly, doesn't give you a free pass to break the law. Doug was loaded into the cruiser. The detective nodded at me. Mr. Huang, Mrs. Huang, he said, we'll be in touch. For now, if anyone claiming to be law enforcement comes to your door, you call us first. As they drove off, Mia leaned over to me. Is it bad, she whispered, that the sound of those cuffs was the most relaxing thing I've heard in weeks? The neighborhood Facebook group had the video up in 10 minutes. By sunset, Officer Doug was trending locally under the hashtag HOACopNoCop. In the months that followed, Magnolia Crest changed. Not because people suddenly became decent, but because lawyers and auditors are terrifying. The county's investigation into Doug turned up multiple instances of him threatening residents with arrest, doorbell footage from 3 other houses, and a side hustle where he charged cash fine reductions if people paid him under the table. He pled guilty to impersonating an officer and making threats. The judge gave him 18 months probation, 200 hours of community service, and a ban on working in any security-related field. His community service was helping repaint graffiti off public buildings, which, according to Mia, was very on brand for someone obsessed with aesthetics. As for Beverly, the HOA audit hit like a wrecking ball in pastel knitwear. They found unauthorized security expenses, fines issued with no basis in the bylaws, and personal purchases charged to the Aesthetic Emergencies Fund, including, I am not joking, a $1,200 espresso machine for the clubhouse labeled board morale equipment. The board voted, under attorney supervision, to remove Beverly as president, bar her from holding any HOA position for life, and require her to repay misused funds. The amount came to $8,400. When the vote was read aloud at the emergency meeting, Beverly's face went from pastel pink to crimson red. She stood up, hand shaking, and screamed that this was a witch hunt, that she had dedicated years to this community, that ungrateful people like us had destroyed everything she built. The room was silent. Then someone in the back started a slow clap. Beverly grabbed her purse, knocked over a folding chair, and stormed out of the clubhouse. We never saw her at another HOA meeting again.